I am Duryea Rashad, and this is Talk It Out, where we talk it out. Today we have special guests from Atlanta, ATL in the building all day, every day. We have a San Diegan and a New Jerseyan, but everybody from the ATL. So first, I just want to remind everybody that this is supposed to be a safe space where we can have safe and productive conversation of people of opposing views while maintaining a semblance of respect, keeping in mind that it's not about proving who's right or wrong. It's about listening and being heard. Okay? So first, I want to introduce my guest. Of course, we have my brother, veteran, entrepreneur, Corey Collier. We've got the beautiful Alex McNeil, a budding film director. We've got my close friend from like 8th grade, Kiana Shelton, who's got, I got to say this right, a BA in International Relations from Stanford University and an MPP from the University of Michigan. Okay, we've got Omar Brockenhouse, and we've got Jazz, and we've also got Julian, who's got a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science and Math. All right, thank you all for being here, and I'm actually really looking forward to today's show because we're going to actually touch on a lot of different topics. But first, I just want to start off with checking in with everybody. Usually this is where we do our quarantine check-in, see how life is during quarantine. So if you want to talk about that, you can. Talk about stuff that you've come to realize, or if you want to talk about the George Floyd situation. Before I let you talk, I just want to give some context. Today, the last 3 officers were charged, and the officer that had his knee on that man's neck, his charges got bumped up, I believe, to 2nd degree. 2nd degree, yeah. Also, there's another separate incident that happened in Atlanta where 2 students were forcefully pulled from their cars. All 4 of those officers, I think it was 6 officers, are now facing charges as well. Right. So if you want to talk about any of that, just to open up, I'll open the floor. And if anyone wants to go first, feel free. Somebody.
Alex. I heard Alex. That's too loud.
Yep, Alex. Come on, Alex. Come on with it.
Fine. My quarantine so far has been going good. I try not to check into social media too much because mentally it's a lot and it makes me tired and I'm very, very emotional. So I try to limit how much news I watch, how much social media I interact with on a day-to-day basis. As far as the George Floyd situation here in Atlanta, it's just a lot. It's that plus the 2 students plus just anything will set me off to make me cry. So I just try to keep it all an even keel. I play a lot of Nintendo Switch. I just try to keep it all very chill over here. So that's it.
Right. It's interesting that because I feel you on that. Like it's hard to compartmentalize. It's hard to compartmentalize like everything that we're experiencing right now because it's like we got this quarantine, we've got these riots, we got these. It's just a lot. Anybody else want to speak on it?
I mean, I definitely called out Black today. I sent my manager, because I love white guilt. It's productive sometimes. And I sent my manager this email, and I was like, I'm tired of watching lynching, and it's hard to concentrate and worry about deliverables, so I'm not coming to work today. So I am here joining you courtesy of I did not work today, and it was fantastic, and I will draw my check for the rest of the week. I'm not doing nothing. I'm like, don't ask me nothing. I'm away. My calendar is I'm just drawing a check for the rest of the week. Hashtag self-care. I will say that the thing that I'm thinking about most is just the responses from people. And again, there are whole companies with PR, and Black people are everywhere. I know they like to make it feel like we're just these but we're everywhere. And I have been so disappointed with the level of disingenuine response. And then, of course, no response whatsoever. And I work at a company, and unfortunately, it's been a little radio silent, and it's felt. And I don't think I think the thing that I'm battling with most is intellectually, I've processed a lot of this, but emotionally, like today was my day. And so I feel you playing the Nintendo Switch, like, trying to find value in the things that I love, trying to talk to people. I was on the phone with Kim Butler before I talked to you during it. I was talking to Kimberly Butler
Really? How is
on
she?
the phone. She's good. She's good. My girl's resilient. That's all I'll say. That's a story for her to tell. But she's so sweet and just uplifting my people. And just, it's an emotional process day. I could talk forever, so I'm not going to talk forever. But
I feel
yeah,
you.
I just co-sign Alex. Yeah.
Anyone want to go next?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Omar.
Definitely, just to piggyback on what she said in regards to self-care. I'm taking this week to do a lot of self-care because I don't know if you know Duryea, but I'm a pilot. So
yeah, you told me. I didn't know until you told me, but you told me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. So I'm
That's
constantly,
amazing.
Yeah, that is.
Thank you. So I'm constantly training, and I guess the day the Floyd situation happened, I was preparing for to receive my license to get another rating, and I was trying so hard to focus on the things that I needed to focus on to get the rating, but I kept getting pulled back into just frustration and anger as a Black man, witnessing what I saw, and I was able to push through and get the rating, but after I got the rating, it just all started bubbling over, and I took to social media and just started voicing my mind. And it's funny because a lot of relationships got exposed to me in a short period of time of posting stuff on Facebook. And, I have tons of friends of all nationalities. And, I felt like, you don't have to speak on the situation if you don't know what to say, and or if you don't understand what's really going on, or in regards to the plight of my community. But a lot of people that I deal with, even with my on the pilot level with my training and stuff, they would comment on my post about things that I post on my page, which would then spark debate between them and I. And I just ruined a lot of relationships in a short period of time. I had one guy, for example, I posted something, and he commented on my page, and he was like, "Oh, well, I don't understand why they're looting and destroying their community." And naturally, I defended my city and the looters, and it wasn't even a hard jab. It was just a light tap. I was just like, well, the basic founding principles of this country were done on looting and etc. And I started shooting some history facts. So he got offended. Basically, he blocked me on Facebook. They deleted my comments and my post. And then I got a call via another coworker who I work with at the airport, and he told him to tell me that I'm not welcome to come back and fly there anymore. And I was like,
oh,
and he has my number.
Yeah,
and he has my number, and this is a white guy who I was doing some training with, and he has my number. He could have easily reached out
himself on man time
and said he was offended, or but so for me, it was just like, after that, I just decided I was going to log off for a couple of days. And then my birthday is coming up this weekend, so I was like, I got to get me together mentally and just detach from it all. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Okay, and thank you for sharing that. Jazz, you want to go?
Happy early birthday, man.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I've been in a very interesting space because I don't necessarily get the luxury of not thinking about my words very carefully.
Right.
As a pastor, people don't see me as an individual sometimes. And so there are times when I may want to say something from my anger, and it's like, nah, you're going to have to make a call to your inner circle and just get everything out that you got to say. Because when you make a statement, it's going to feel like, for people, it's coming from your church. And so I find myself having to be very calculated. And so that's frustrating. I feel A lot of times there is this tension between what I want to say and what would be in the best interest for me to say. And then just as a father, as a husband, I'm stretched as a business owner, as a lot of things that I'm responsible for. I feel stretched, and so I'm drained. And so it's frustrating. It's sad. I'm sad. I am. I have my moments of intense anger, and at the same time, there are people like literally calling me from other parts of the country asking me for how they should move forward and handling this during COVID. And one of my responsibilities here in Atlanta is I'm an outreach pastor, so I have students that go to every school in the AUC, and so when they saw the situation with the Morehouse and Spelman students, they felt a lot of stuff because these are people they actually know. And so even being on the call with them last night and creating a safe space for them to talk, it's still like, man, I got to take on all of this. So therapy is my friend.
Yeah.
I love therapy, because I pay for you to like shut up and listen to me while I, have to listen to a whole lot of people and all this stuff. And even I had to preach this past Sunday, and I was heavy. Like we pre-record our stuff for Sunday, so I had to record it on Thursday. I saw everything on Tuesday, and so it's a short window of time to get my mind around everything that I saw, because it wasn't just George Floyd. We're in Georgia, so I'm still thinking about and working with people who are handling the Ahmaud Arbery case. And we're processing Breonna Taylor, who I have a student I work with lived a block away from Breonna Taylor. Like, so all this stuff is happening, and I still am striving to be present for my wife, who still got to go to work because she's a scientist, so she don't get to work from home. So, it's a lot of different stuff, just processing and navigating this time.
Just before I hand off the mic, I did want to just respond to that, because even though I think at this point in time, human beings are really trying to be as sensitive as we can to other people's situations, but man, that's a lot that you have going on, and just one person. And I've never considered how much weight a pastor has, because you can't say anything wrong. You don't have that luxury.
Right.
You don't have the luxury, and you have to carry everybody's load. So I just want to tell you, thank you for what you do for people, because people need like people who are going to stand up and just comfort them like that. So I appreciate that from you.
Thank you.
Where you want to go? So you lean forward. So.
Really, to be honest, man, I've already said it, bro. Like
Well, you said to me, say it for everybody. Let everybody hear what you feel.
Well, I mean, I'm coming from it like I think COVID-19 is invented. There's a reason why they call it 19. I feel like AIDS was invented. So I just want people to be careful what they participate in and look at the things that's going on behind the scenes. It's hard to do that, but this is not a government that has a history of helping us out, So COVID-19 has helped me sit down, even though I was working during COVID-19. I still had a chance to sit down and really analyze everything was going on. This is a war, as far as I'm concerned. And if you don't see it like that, I'm not saying that you're wrong or right, but I'm saying this is nothing new to me. These are the same people that put smallpox in the Indians' blankets. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay. Julie.
All right. I guess how we're doing in quarantine. At this point, I'm just like, I'm actually kind of over it. Is that terrible to say?
Over the quarantine?
No.
Only, you know what it is? I'm kind of yearning for like
interaction,
physical interaction with like people and stuff. And like normally I guess it wouldn't matter. It's just coming at a specific time in my life where I'm like, I kind of need to see my friends. So it's like bad timing, I guess. But I guess it's really the only thing I'm sick of, because otherwise it's like, you know, we just have to do what we have to do to get through it. You know what I mean? It's better that we are all being mindful at least, because I personally don't really think it's as deadly as they like to play it up to be. I know that it is pretty serious, but I just personally think that they inflate a few things. Beyond that, it still doesn't mean that we don't have like a duty to each other to like, you know, be healthy and you know, wear your mask, try and stay away from people and stuff, just because you might be able to weather it, but somebody else might not. So you have to just kind of really consider what other people's like standpoints are here. As far as
Oh, go ahead. No,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say just not real quick, because what if I ever done anything real quick? That would be a lot. But I really want to point out something, because I know that you're gonna have hopefully a wide spanning viewership for these conversations, and I want to say 100%. I know exactly what Julian or Corey are talking about. But I feel like, and y'all, and you two, please let me know if you're like, that's not what I meant. But I want to take some things out from those, because I feel like what you said is going to be easy for a lot of people to discount when it really is, quite frankly, factual. Just like Corey said, it's not new. When we're talking about invention, it is not that Republican conspiracy. What we're talking about is intentional proliferation of fear, sickness, incitement of violence. Like, there were ways in which all of those things, the AIDS epidemic, the HIV/AIDS epidemic, which ravaged Black and brown people, queer communities, continues to ravage.
And real quick, AIDS has a patent number as well, Ms. Tiana.
Yeah. Again, like, I think, like, I'm not discounting what you're saying. What I'm saying is that I think that word is easy for people to dismiss, because when it's like, well, they invented this. To them, that says, oh, this is a figmentation. This is something that's not real. And so I just wanted to like pull that out really quickly, in case like the wide spanning viewership who will ultimately see this like doesn't make that connection that I feel you on, right? Like, nothing about this is imagined. Right? In terms of like the escalation and like the blowing up of it, absolutely, in the sense of this, right? Like, what is real is that we are experiencing disproportionate effects as Black people. That's very real. Now, when we talk about the gravity of disease, proliferation, I won't get into it. I'm just like, that is real.
What you just said makes me want to ask a question, because I've had this conversation a little bit too, because I was locked up when the pandemic hit. I just got home. So, and it's crazy.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Man.
I'll do something with my life. You know what I'm saying? Start this business, get myself together. But yes, pray. Yeah. So basically, when I was in there, I forgot what I was about to say, Keanu. What you say at the end? I was
just saying that we experienced disproportionate effects from COVID.
Yes, thank you. Don't you forget your thought. So basically, they were talking about when that report came out that said, oh, Black people are getting hit with this more. And this might be just my thought process, because I'm always like, okay, what could you be doing as an individual to make shit better? So my thought process was like, well, yeah, part of that is because of systemic racism and all those things. But like, are we doing healthy things in the Black community? Or are we pushing like high immune, like what kills us the most is high blood pressure and heart disease. So my question is this: how much of it, and just as an opinion, because I don't think there's a straight answer, how much of it do y'all think is purely the racist system, and how much of it is within our control to eat better, exercise, those kind of things, not drink so much, not smoke so much?
I'm going to let somebody else go, but I have real strong opinions about just this topic, but I don't want people to hear me talk too much. So somebody else go, and then I'm gonna give you some books, some reading, some resources, some articles.
Come on, Kiana. Come on, Kiana.
Oh, Kiana.
Yeah, I mean, so my undergraduate degree is in sociology. And the class that made me fall in love with sociology was the sociology of health and illness. And in that class, the sociology of health and illness.
Okay.
And so in that class, we talked about this book called Medical Apartheid. And
there you go.
And Medical Apartheid basically outlined the ways that the racist systems utilize medical racism in order to justify something as simple as, well, the black man's feet are preconditioned to be faster, but their brains are preconditioned to be inferior. Like things like that were continually perpetuated in history. And so when we bring it up to now and we look at areas like I passed in the hood, like if that's what we want to call it, I love my people, but sometimes we try to make it an individual thing when it's a social thing and a sociological thing. And so what happens is when you think about the implications of if we can't get businesses in the hood, we can't get grocery stores in the hood, we can't get, health and wellness in the hood, then
LA Fitness in the hood.
It ain't gonna happen.
Hold on, can't freak LA Fitness.
You got Planet Fitness on MLK. You get Planet Fitness in MLK. But what I see is understanding, like, one, we have to be educated and be willing to, those of us who have the education, be willing to go and walk with people. Like go and say, like, hey, I understand you have this disdain for the medical profession for good reason. We got Tuskegee experiments. We got all these things that we talking about AIDS, talking about COVID. Like we've seen a history of disproportionality and things affecting us in a specific way. But I think that it's kind of a chicken and egg argument. Like what came first was really the racism. What came first was we don't have these businesses, these stores that can get good produce. We don't have the knowledge. And even if you go back further, it's like, well, what we cooking when we slaves?
The leftovers. What was left?
Pigs and yep.
That's a
very
condensed.
Hold on. I think we're not realizing that we were kidnapped.
Oh, we realize it.
Oh, we know.
No. Okay, let me go further. Not just kidnapped, but after we were used, we weren't sent back.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like basically they're saying, like, if I hire a contractor to build my house, after you're done, I don't want you to live in my house no more.
You go do another job.
Go away. But we didn't go away. You follow me? So he mentioned medical apartheid. Sir, with the yellow shirt. What's your name?
Jazz.
Jazz?
Yeah.
Okay. Medical apartheid was even deeper. They used to experiment on us because they called us subhuman without antiseptic. Mm-hmm. People don't understand that. So what I'm getting at is there has to be an end to that. And I think only violence is the way.
And that's where me and him always. I feel like there is a. I think Omar kind of maybe was kind of touching on this before. I think what's happening online, what we're seeing, is people feeling like, hey, you're not doing what I'm doing in response to this, and that's not cool. But I feel like Corey is allowed to feel how he feels about it. Granted, he's not going out there doing it. He just feels like that's the only way people are going to wake up to it.
Well, let's talk about two things, because violence is an actually very large equation of how we set up society. Everything is violent, right? We can't talk criminal justice system. We can't talk abolition. Everything is violence, right? So like, Well, no. So okay. So now I got two
Did the
things.
white man build the slave ship on peace, Duryea, or on violence?
No,
On
I'm
violence
asking a question to fuel the
No. So this is okay. First off, I'm gonna talk this. I'm gonna take 30 seconds to tell you because Jazz said everything I need to say. I have to say anything. There's a really great book called by Sabrina Strings. She's a professor at UC Irvine. Sabrina Strings, like violin strings. Sabrina Strings. She wrote a book called Fearing the Black Body: The Origins of Fat Phobia. It's highly academic, but it's still a good read. She goes all the way back to the Italian Renaissance. So like, here's why you think like bodies should look this way or look this way, all the way up to the medicalized use of obesity. Right.
That got something to do with those dresses with the big butt.
Yeah, white women didn't have them, and they wanted the big butt dress.
White women used to wear those dresses.
The bustle
for that shape.
Yeah, Mr. Hugh made me wear one for the play. You remember that? So, girl, we go back to some Miss D. Hold on, let me stop. But it's a really great book. But for an easier read, she recently wrote a New York Times article that said it's not obesity, it's slavery. And what I want to point out is the white narrative behind Black health. Because they have a history, again, medical apartheid, of dehumanizing our physical bodies, right? Corey's right. We weren't human. We were barely human up until 50 years ago.
We were basically horses. Not even.
No, horses had it better than we did. So when you talk about the dehumanization of people, our bodies, that would
dogs got it better than we do.
Oh, yes. No niggers, no Irish, no dogs. Like, yes. So it's one of those things where I tell people all the time, it's like before you point fingers at people's individual actions, you need to look at food systems, you need to look at economic disparity, you need to look at how the medical profession has basically made our bodies aberrant.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it is they've done it so they can control white women. That's the end of Sabrina's book. In case you read the book, that's the end of the book.
Don't ruin it.
Wow.
But it's good.
Which actually ties into our main topic for the night. I actually want to continue this one a little bit more, just because I wanted to hear if anyone else wanted to say something about it.
Yes, quit me to talk. This is Sabrina Strings, Chrissy Harrison writes a good book. Everything is right. Violence. We should talk about violence. The only thing I want to say in response to Corey is like, he's absolutely right, because the violence that we're experiencing is property rights violence. I don't give a shit.
There's
the police were formed specifically to protect white business owners' property rights. So like when we talk about this like violence, Black people aren't imparting physical violence for the most part. The violence is coming because of the strike to the heart of the capitalist system that keeps us in bondage. So when we talk violence, we really need to talk about what that means, because it's not the way it's operationalized. Okay, anyway, I'm not going to talk no more. Somebody else, because I'm hot.
Please. I do want to say
that was great.
I want to say, like, to me, I think it's important for us when we're looking at all this. I forgot my thought again. Damn, Kiana.
I'm on mute. For a while. I'm hot. I'm trying to live. I'm hot. Corey got me hyped.
Corey get everybody hyped. That's what he do. That's Corey. Just in case y'all didn't know, Corey gonna be like, and then he gonna hit you with it.
I definitely feel where Corey is coming from. I feel like, throughout the history of America, everything has been based on violence, like conquering lands, like pillaging, raping, taking. All of it is violent. So, MLK, okay, peaceful protest. Where did they get him? They
still killed him.
Malcolm X, violent protest. He still ended up.
But let's not discount peaceful protest. For example, was it the Montgomery boycott, the bus boycott? Mm-hmm. That's what my point to Corey is, that it is not a one-way solution. He and I'm just talking about private conversation that we had because we brothers and we right. Yeah. I feel like to discount violent protests or to discount peaceful protests is an affront to both, because they both have been successful. And there's evidence to that. I don't think it's going to be a one or the other solution. I think it's going to be a blending of both, as is apparent by what we're seeing right now. Because it's not just, we're seeing violent protests, absolutely, but we're also seeing, and some people say it's fake, I don't really speak to that, but we're seeing cops get on their knees. We're seeing the National Guard put down their shields. and that's the president told us to be out here, but whether it's fake or not, we're seeing it.
I agree
Quick,
with you.
in Oakland, they have many officers who have already been tried for the killing of many Black and Latino people, and they sitting there kneeling on the ground like they shoot 17-year-olds in the neck. So
True.
y'all take for what that is.
I mean, I understand that, which is actually a question I wanted to ask. Omar, give your comment, and then I actually want a question to the.
No, I was just gonna say I agree with you, Duryea, but I think at this point in time in 2020, it is going to be necessary for violence to occur, only because that is the only way that the movement is respected. Like, for us, this is a different generation in time. Like, this generation, you know, not saying that they want to be different. We're different. Like,
in a lot of ways.
And we have to be violent to make a point, because at the end of the day, racism is still going to be around in the next decade and the decade after that. But at the end of the day, we have to make a statement, and the only way that statement will be identified and respected is if we nut check, so to speak, the powers that be. So the only way to do that, yes, you have to destroy businesses. You have to. Target ain't worried about their store,
and a lot of businesses are coming out and saying that.
Right, they have $1 million policy in place, insurance policy. They're gonna put up 15 more targets when you destroy that one. Like, it doesn't. I feel like we have to be violent, because the only way that white people will pay attention is when you hurt their pockets. They can't understand the moral compass of, oh, you're 500 years ago, you were brought here on ships and you were done wrong and you didn't get your 100 acres and a mule. So we get that. We should feel for you, but we don't. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? It doesn't do anything.
Let me ask y'all this.
140, you up the ante.
My bad. I'm sorry, y'all.
No. There's a few things I want to ask that you touched on. One, I guess to me, I wanted to ask y'all this. Okay, because you said white people, right? And I think a big part of what we're seeing right now has to do with, and this is just white people have decided, okay, we're going to do something. And I think a lot of white people have been afraid to do something because of doing it wrong. Honestly. And I feel like there's a lot of white people who are still afraid of doing, like you were talking about those silent people, Omar.
Yeah.
Even some Black people are silent because they don't know if their form of protest is. I think there's people out there who they might not want to be violent, but they want to do something and they don't know how or what to do, because nowadays our protest has to be, not nowadays, it seems like our protest has to be sanctioned by the black hole.
That's totally respectable, but I feel like you have to choose a side. It has to be apparent. Like, there is no.
But it's not about sides. It's about, I know what side I'm on, but I'm Black. I'm on my Black side, but I'm not violent. I'm a non-violent. But I mean,
when I say sides, I'm not meaning like racial sides. I mean, like, you have to make it apparent of, your viewpoint on it. You know what I mean? Like, for me, if I'm doing business with you or even as a friend, my relationship with you, like, yeah, you can have a difference in opinion, and that's fine, and I can respect that, and we can talk to each other and discuss the differences and, disagree to agree or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think when you are silent in times like this is the most disrespectful thing ever, because,
Talk about that. Talk about why you feel that way.
I just feel like I have a lot of friends on social media of all race and nationalities, people that I've bumped into throughout my life that I consider close friends, associates. And, if, like, for example, one of my friends in particular, he's mixed. He's Dominican and he's Caucasian. And
yikes.
And he's been posting content where it's like, he's been posting all the conspiracy theory type stuff in terms of how, this is all, we have people infiltrating the protests, and, they are the ones that are actually doing the looting, etc. And he's giving a very skewed point of view of it. And as being a part minority man, I have expected him to take a certain stance, which I know I can't expect that of him. But
I'm sorry. Keep going. I just want to say to that.
But it's been kind of troubling to me because it's like he'll come in on my stuff and he'll post links to conspiracy theory type stuff, and I'm like,
you mean conspiracy theory in what way?
You know how there's right now everybody's like, okay, the government is behind. I'm trying to give an example of some of the stuff he sends me.
I guess
like
he on that 5G. He on the 5G.
Yeah, like he look at all those type of articles, and he's like, he's out there. Like he believe all that stuff that comes out, and it's always he chooses the latter in terms of at the basic surface recognizing what is apparent. Like racism exists. Like point blank. Period. It exists. It will always exist, but his viewpoint is kind of skewed because he lives in the North. He kind of could go on a given day. He could look like a fair-skinned white man. Right. So there's a lot of things that he doesn't have to go through versus me being from the South, born and raised, living in the South.
But you're saying that because he's a minority, he should know better. However, I want to, and I guess Julian could speak to this, but my understanding that is in the Latino community, colorism's a real big problem.
Oh yeah,
white Latinos are the worst. Continue.
They are the worst. Stop. They are the worst. Stop. They are the worst. Also,
technically, what you just said, Kiana, isn't that right?
50% of my family is like white Latino too, so I can't really even talk about that.
So
oh girl, I know they are terrible.
But, Julian, talk about that a little bit because racism doesn't just.
Oh my god! Well, racism is like really pervasive in like the Latino community, and to be honest, it's probably coming from like our Spanish roots and the European part, and that, and then like the subjugation of our people and the whole nine, like Indians that are also part of our, and natives rather, natives that are part of our heritage and culture. They've like been wiped out. So obviously, you know what I mean. They're valued at a different level as far as like your pigmentation goes. So it's like it's kind of the worst because, to me, it always just feels as if like Latinos are trying to just be white people, like the light skinned ones and the ones at least that are that hold that ideal. It's more like it's more of a this is how we will fit in with them. And it's like, but you shouldn't need to. You should be proud of where you came from, and that's that. You know what I mean? And they should respect that. And if they don't, then those aren't the people for you, and that's certainly not the people you should be aspiring to be like.
Right.
Like, in my opinion, but.
No, I definitely agree with you because what I noticed is, so he's a videographer. So most of his clientele
are white people.
And a lot of the people that follow him are white people. So I kind of jab him on social media because I'm like, yo, like I see what you're doing, and I get it. Like from a business standpoint, you don't want to offend your clientele, or you maybe don't want to burn those relationships that you have because that essentially equals income for you to be able to survive and for you to take care of your family. But at the end of the day, it's like all of the information that's posted is for the other side. It pertains. It's always far left instead of where it should be, in my opinion. So we oftentimes go back and forth because I'm like, you are a minority man. Like you can't sit here and tell me you are not aware of racism and
sometimes they aren't, but sometimes they aren't.
Sometimes they're not. There've been the thing about programming, and I was explaining this to Corey. The thing about when you're programmed to do something, because you the episode before this, we actually had a young man on here, and he was white, and he flat out was like, yo, I didn't know that some of the stuff I was taught was right. Stuff. He flat out was like, I don't understand why it's not okay for me to say.
We'll be back, y'all.
Yeah. He flat out was like, I don't understand why it's not okay for me to say I don't see color. And it's weird for us because as a Black person, you don't have the choice of not knowing that shit.
Right.
Ooh, so you done hit on it. That right there, that was it. Because let me tell you this.
For us to think that people don't know that, it's like you're lying. But I think we're coming to realize, no, it's some people out there who
don't know.
No, but here's the thing. Here's the thing that bothers me.
Like people really are clueless. Sorry, go ahead.
But no. Julian is right. Like this is my whole thing that it boggles the mind, y'all. For real. Again, I gotta shout out some Black people doing good things. there's this woman, Erica Hart. She's a sex educator out of New York. I think she's an adjunct at Columbia.
Yeah, Hart.
Not woman. She is a non-binary human. She does use she and they, so not woman. Non-binary thing. Oh, can you hear me?
You good?
Can you hear me?
You're freezing a little bit.
Oh no, I don't want to freeze. I don't want to freeze.
Okay, you coming back in. Go ahead.
Okay. So her name is Erica Hart. She's a sex educator out of New York. She has a partner named Ebony from Oakland. And Ebony, her partner, is the best. They're transmasculine, just always coming with the hits. Love them. But they were talking on their podcast together. And they said something that was so profound, it literally hit me smack in the face. And it was exactly what you just said, Julie and Julie Omar. Like, white ignorance comes at the price of Black death. Mm-hmm. Like, everything we have to learn as Black people to navigate through the world, it's this ignorance is what these people, they're ignorant, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't see color, this and this. And like the people who are like, oh, I'm afraid, like I want to do something, but I'm afraid of doing it wrong. I'm like, okay, welcome to being Black. Do you not think that when we stepped outside of the social bounds, however racist they were, that we weren't quickly redirected and we had to get over that shit for survival? Right. So you can do it too. If I have to admonish you, you can do it too. Keep on moving. I mean, I love you less, but I get to say that shit wasn't right. Fix it. Do it, and you don't have a right to have white tears and have your feelings hurt because your ignorance kills people. Mine doesn't.
2020, it's really inexcusable that you cannot sit here and say that I don't know what to do. Like, okay, when that whole turtle video came out and it was like the straw was up the turtle's nose, people were in an uproar. They were rushing out to buy metal straws. They were doing all this research on plastic conservation to like make the earth a better place. Why can't those same principles be followed with race? Like, you could go out and look up books and articles and podcasts and TED Talks about what is a correct or a PC way of moving in life. There's a whole book about white fragility. So I don't want to hear that you don't know, that you can't find, and you're too scared to ask. If you wanted some money to fund your business, you would do the research for the bank.
I do have a question, Alex.
You would do the research for that. It's not hard. There's no more excuses in 2020. It really isn't.
I have one question for the group, because this is a conversation I have recently had with a close friend of mine. She feels exactly how you feel, Alex, but hers is a little bit more intense, where she feels like even if they ask, I'm not going to tell you.
Me neither.
I guess for me, the only reason I say that is because I feel like, and I'm coming from a more like pacifist, Buddhist, humanitarian kind of standpoint.
You got the time. I don't.
That's right.
I feel like if someone comes to you in earnest and tells you, hey, I fucking want to help, but I don't know how. I could easily say, well, go read a book. But then, did I just miss an opportunity? Or was that cool
Absolutely
for you to do?
not.
But you know people's level of sincerity and contrition.
Yes, and
for instance,
I don't feel like nobody's
these people
like that if they weren't sincere.
Sir, you got people reaching out to me on Facebook who we went to elementary school, high school with, these people, and like, oh, we haven't talked in a long time, thinking of you. And I'm like, nigga, you was the one who told me I was articulate in the hallways. Or like, you were the one who said that racist shit to me. You are the cause of my trauma. And
they don't even realize.
15 years later in my inbox talking about, I'm thinking of you and I don't know where to start and where can I be. No, those niggas can miss me. But if I have people who have shown empathy and who I know are really coming to me and not putting the onus on me, saying like, hey, I have a question. If you can field it, great. If you can't, a bitch can push to Google. When you come to me with that humility, then we can talk. But don't be coming in my inbox, Karen, from HR or whoever.
Yeah, like.
Wait, okay. So,
y'all better talk to the pastor. Jazz is there for everyone. I didn't take the oath of I didn't take that oath. Jazz did. Jazz is there for everybody.
Okay,
I didn't take that.
Look, I'm gonna get Jazz in here, and then I want to segue to our next topic. So go ahead.
All right, so here's my thing. I've been telling people, like, don't expect me to educate you while I'm mourning.
While I'm mourning? Yeah.
While I'm mourning. I don't know what you thought I said, but
that's what I thought you said.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
And what that has meant for me, because, you know, I'm coming from the perspective of, I got white pastor friends. I got people who lead largely white congregations, and I lead a largely black congregation. And a few weeks ago, I had an old, rich, white pastor come to my building and say, hey, I want to do something. And he wasn't like, I want you to educate me on every aspect. He says, this is what I've learned. This is what I see. And then he was humble enough to really honestly be very honest with me about his own racist perspectives. And that brought me closer to him, because I always assumed, like, you're old, rich, and white. I always assume you have some racialized perspectives.
Of course you do.
But he was able to come to me and say that. And he was like, I really want to leverage the reality that I got a bunch of old, rich, white people that need to hear what y'all been saying, but clearly they missing it. So I need to yell it through whatever forums I can. And
tell them to preach a sermon on reparations to the old white people.
I think that's next week.
Okay.
But,
hey, let me say this real quick, y'all.
All right now.
Where Corey come from?
Motherfucker, they came back. Hey.
Yeah, I got
it is.
Pass the plate one more time.
But what I'm, you know, in closing, what I'm saying is I don't necessarily feel like it's our responsibility to educate people. Now, it's my conviction, and this is from, you know, this is from me as a pastor, man of faith, is my conviction that if somebody does, as Jory pointed out, comes to me in earnest, and I recognize that this person has been an ally, which is what was the case, somebody who has been working to use his voice and his platform to better the cause, to move the cause forward, then I feel okay with saying, like, hey, these are some books that you can read. These are some art, just like I had never heard of Sabrina Strings. I'm not asking Kiana to give me the whole book. I'm asking her to give me access to the knowledge so that I can go forward and say, okay, how can I view Black bodies differently? How can I indict my male privilege, or indict whatever it is I need to indict and investigate in my own heart to make sure I can integrate with people in a different way? And so I think, you know, I'm not about to educate you and give you a whole rundown. I paid a good amount of money for all the stuff that I know. But I am going to utilize the opportunities. If you're coming to me in earnest and you come in the Bankhead to have this conversation, I will willingly let you know what you can do.
You done came to
Donald Lee Hollowell.
Came on Donald
Lee Hollowell, yes.
Donald Lee Hollowell for the new ATL. Donald Lee Hollowell.
I kind of want to shift because today I got the best news that I've gotten in my entire life. I like to usually when we first started doing this, things weren't this heavy. This stuff hadn't happened. So I really wanted us to have a chance to talk about what we just spoke about. And as Black people, we need to do this kind of stuff. We need to be unified in this kind of way. However, so Marvel, right? Marvel is bringing the X-Men to Marvel from Fox.
Finally!
Hold on.
Finally.
Oh, no. Corey, don't take this from me. Let me have this. Corey, let me have this. Let me have this moment. This is the best news I've gotten in a long time. So I got back.
Marvel got the rights back to the X-Men.
Right. Marvel has the rights to X-Men now. Okay, so growing up, my favorite X-Men person, superhero, anything was Aurora Monroe, aka Storm. Listen to me. Let me talk to you for a minute.
Oh my God, are we gonna get the crossover to Wakanda? Are we gonna get the crossover to Wakanda?
I have to tell you something. In the comic book,
they have to cast her right first before I get
excited.
You have to cast it right first before I get excited.
So in the comic books, she's pretty much one of the deadliest members of that team. She got them hands for your ass because T'Challa trained her in how to fight. That's Black Panther, who in the Marvel
Wakanda
universe is the best fighter. He's basically Marvel's equivalent to Batman. So not only is she a badass with the hands, she can stand toe to toe.
Batman is the best fighter.
Because in DC he's the only, in DC Batman's the only character who has actually beaten everyone on the Justice.
Everyone.
Batman is the only person that don't have no superpowers.
Incorrect.
He just got a bunch of.
Yo, being rich is a superpower. Haven't you heard?
That's some American shit for your ass, ain't it?
I mean,
no matter what you got, if I got money, I can fuck you up. But I'm
Bruce
sorry.
Wayne got his stimulus check. He got his PPP, so he's ready to go. They don't do.
So let me tell you, listen,
he don't have no actual real like superpowers.
But
I don't pay for
keep
these.
the point.
He got grief.
Don't take it from me. Let me have it. Okay. So this is definitely on topic. It seems a little off topic, but I'm bringing it around.
Okay.
So basically, in the movies, she was not only. I think she was only featured the way she was featured because of who played her. They tried to marginalize that character. They beat her in the midst of every other character because she was not only black, but because she was also a female, in my opinion. So Marvel has decided that the way they're going to introduce the X-Men to this universe is her. They're
her own movie.
Central. Not only that, because they're saying this is all supposed to build up to Marvel Avengers versus the X-Men, in which her relationship with Black Panther plays an incredibly large role. And in the history that Black Panther had, of course they're going to try to capitalize on that again, knowing every black woman in the world who knows wants to see that shit go down and wants her to be a badass. So today's major topic is about toxic masculinity. But first, I want to talk about why you think in a society where I think it's important that we start teaching our kids at a young age to really delve into equality, not just in how we treat blacks versus white, but are you treating the ladies the way they should be treated?
Okay, let me go first.
Wait, Corey, let me finish now. I'm gonna
I'm scared.
I deal with this shit every day, bro. That's my bro.
Corey is ready to start some shit again.
Julian, it's starting.
Right. So my thing is, I think that my personal opinion, and then I'm gonna let y'all have it, is that this is their way, because Disney owns Marvel, and in my opinion, Disney tries its best to be incredibly inclusive. I think when you and y'all can talk about that, yeah. But I think they tried. At least they tried. Yeah. So
they try for the purpose of money, but yes,
right.
but they do try. But they do try. I hear you said yeah, but they still are trying, right?
I mean, hey, I'm not saying they're always successful because I'm still mad that Princess and the Frog was 2D. But we talk about that too.
They were trying to do a nostalgia thing.
Nah, I think it's better.
They should have 3D that shit. They 3D Frozen, and look what happened.
Don't get off topic.
Right.
Thank you, Corey. Basically, what I'm saying is, I want to know: do y'all think this is an effort to really put women in the forefront, ethnic people in the forefront, to really bring about an actual dialogue about equality? Or do you honestly think it's just for money?
Let me go first, please.
Oh my God.
Corey got to go last. That's the rule.
Don't do Corey like this. Well, I feel like I should defer to Alex as the woman in the. I want to know. Am I doing this too much? I'm like Alex, because you like Marshall Brady. You right there.
Okay.
In my dude, you right there.
On my screen.
So I'd be like, what you think, girl? What you think? On my screen.
I feel like it's a two-part question. Do I think that Fox or Marvel, is using this opportunity to communicate gender equality? Absolutely not. No, because you know what? Unless Storm's outfit don't have her covered from head to toe,
which they usually do.
You know, but it's not. We all know she's gonna have like her stomach cut out. It's gonna be boobs lifted up to her chin. Like
Halle Berry was never nowhere than the neck. That's the most she showed in the movie, neck.
But she was older too, so wasn't nobody trying to get that from her.
Halle Berry.
Everybody's always trying
a whole different thing at that time in her career.
Halle Berry can't act also, so let's move that along. But
that's not the point. That's not the point. Calm down, Daria. Calm down.
She's not a crack. Wait.
Because Cameron's still in her repertoire.
Let me
you can't.
a quick point, y'all.
Go ahead.
Quick. Storm was fucking violent, Daria.
Ooh! Say the truth. Say more, Corey. Say more.
had to combat violence with what, Duryea?
Peace.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
Xavier was all about that peace. What are you talking about?
Xavier was all about the hands. He didn't have no legs. He was about hands.
Civil rights movement.
Get out of here, bro.
X-Men was an allegory for the civil rights movement where Charles Xavier was supposed to represent Martin Luther King. Magneto was supposed to represent Max.
Yeah.
Which means they still got it wrong.
In the cartoon,
I thought it was the Jews. I thought it was the Holocaust.
No, it was supposed to be civil rights.
Civil rights movement.
X-Men was destroying shit, Duryea.
No, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants were the destroyers. Okay, little history, because this is my favorite shit, right?
You got 30 seconds to give us this primer on X-Men. Go ahead.
X-Men is not like other superhero movie franchises where it's like we going to save the world. No, X-Men were just
better
gang fights, basically. X-Men was like this group gonna fight that group. We weren't trying to save the world.
Gang fights, no shit.
The X-Men were trying to stop the Brotherhood of Mutants from hurting humans.
No, they were trying to stop. Okay, you're right, but let me break it down further. Let me break it down further. The only way they were breaking down bullies against bullies. Like, how can you stop a bully with being protesters? Bullies don't care about no protesters.
Right. But there's way you can fight. You know about this from martial arts. Just because I know how to break your neck does not mean that's the first thing I'm going to do in a fight. I'm going to use that if I have to. If anything, I'm going to subdue you first. This is what you know. That just because you know how to be violent doesn't mean, like I said, your violence should be your big motherfucking gun, right? If you pull
like the Ace of Spades or like the Big Joker.
Yes. And I mean, you throw your aces, you playing spades. Everybody
which one is the Big Joker, though? It's the one with the bicycle. Fight me.
You think this is the big
bicycle? Fight me.
Now it's time to bring out the Big Joker.
And that's where me and you disagree. I feel like it's not that yet.
Corey's not wrong. Fight these niggas. So I feel like Alex was saying something. She was, but
Alex, my bad.
Can I say the N word on the podcast? I said it.
I don't mind.
Okay.
What was the question? Oh, gender equality with Storm. I don't see it being. It's all gonna make money. Let's be real. Black people are gonna go out and watch Storm. They are going to come out for Wakanda 2. They're gonna come out for anything that's going to promote, a brown face. And I don't think that Marvel is setting out to like break no grounds here or anything like that.
Nah.
You know, that's interesting. Okay.
So also my favorite X-Men is Gambit, so there's that.
Ooh.
I think maybe Marvel might be setting out to do a little more in that department, but Disney definitely doesn't care. And Disney's like, well, Disney's like, you can do this as long as it's going to make us X amount of dollars. Like they're the ones who are
these stories.
They're probably the ones who are like in the background, like we don't really care, just make sure it makes money. And Marvel's probably the one who's like, well, why don't we go with this main character instead? Let's go with this because it's a little out of the box.
Because it works for the time.
It'll work exactly, and and they're like, oh well, they're also probably looking at the success of Black Panther. You know what I mean? As their last probably biggest hit. So now they're thinking, well,
the biggest one was Endgame.
Oh, really? Was it?
Oh, yeah.
Endgame was the most popular.
And Endgame was not good. So my whole thing about corporations, right? Like there's always a bottom line. And in my experience, like, yes, I think they realize, just like Julian already said it, it's a money maker. Now, do I think Marvel, because of Stan Lee and his influence and his intention, do I feel more genuine kind of appeal for that type of character and anti-hero? Like, absolutely. So I'm not going to take it away from Marvel. R.I.P. Stan. I really hope he filmed a lot of stuff in the vault and we still get to see him sneak out a little bit posthumously.
Right.
I don't know. I really hope
that's
so.
Creepy. I don't
understand. Stop! It's so cute.
Let me say something to Julian real quick. Julian.
Yes.
Do you do or do you recognize that Walt Disney, not Disney the company right now, Walt Disney had plenty racial
innuendos.
But
yeah.
They don't even have Song of the South on Disney Plus because they know that shit is wrong.
So what I'm getting at is y'all are missing the actual conversation. Oh, not y'all, like all of y'all, but I'm saying is let's bring it back to the conversation. It's white supremacy.
well, I was actually leading. Yes, racism is a thing too. I was really gonna.
No, not just racism.
I'm talking more about the issues that exist between racism and sexism. Because
Sexism. Walt Disney was the master of that shit, bro.
okay, so I want to read you guys something. Actually, I don't, not yet. I'm going to read it in a second.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to say this first because to me, the treatment of the first topic that we had in here on this episode, on this web series was, do black men do enough to protect black women in the workplace?
No.
And
Oh,
should
sorry.
they? And should they? Right.
Yes.
So
Okay.
that was a good video too. But basically, so we didn't really come to an agreement. We didn't, which is fine.
What's there to disagree about? No.
Ask Corey. Ask Corey what it's to
Well,
disagree about.
No, that's last channel. That's last segment. I'm gonna watch when it comes
last-
up. That's last segment.
But I wanted that led
I
to
can answer
Corey.
that. I can answer
Do
that.
it, Corey.
Sure
No,
you can.
we're moving.
Mm.
So, basically, me and Corey at the house after the episode, we got to talking, and toxic masculinity came up. And he's like, well, that's not a real thing. And I'm like, oh, absolutely, it's a real thing. So I want to read this, and then I want to open it up because I feel like, I know, right, Kiana? Right, Kiana? I feel
Wait,
like,
hold on. Has Corey met you before?
met me?
Has he met you? Does he know you?
I guess not. But
Okay,
I'm his
because
brother.
so the only reason I say that is because
No,
if
ridiculous.
we're talking toxic masculinity, that spans sexual spectrum. That's why I'm sitting there like, does he know you? Because
Yeah, right.
we're not going. No, start. Let me go. Let's make the introduction, Durian. Durian, make the introduction.
Let me read it for you first. Okay, it says sexism and toxic masculinity. I'm sorry. Let me do my Let me give my. You got to do your credentials. I got to say what I'm reading. I'm reading a blog from PsychCentral.com by Dr. Athena Staik, Staik.
I like a Greek. I don't know. I like it.
All right. So she quoted, "Sexism and toxic masculinity might makes right illusions combined with fears of rejection that energize insatiable lust for proof of superiority and entitlements to dominate, exploit, and abuse with impunity." That's how she characterized toxic masculinity. So I kind of want to open it up to before we get into whether it's a thing or not. What is your idea of what masculinity is, and where did it come from? Everybody, just one at a time. Let's start there.
I'll start. I don't necessarily have a definition for masculinity. I think that it's just a societal kind of definition of what the perception of a man should be. But I think individually, men are so different and they're so, vast in their experiences that as long as you're trying to live a balanced and healthy life, and as long as you're doing self-care and you're talking to different races and you're talking to other women, I think that can be, for me, a perception of masculinity.
Okay. Hold on. Talking to what?
Everybody but you.
Oh,
Nope. That's not what you said.
That's what I said. Next person.
See?
oh, what you got? Y'all let my man Corey say what he gonna say. I feel like y'all, because he get it popping. Somebody, Julia go, because Corey gonna get it popping, and I gotta calm down.
No, no. Let me go last. I have a lot of opinions.
You know what? I really want to hear from Jazz. That's why
I have a lot of opinions on this one.
Yes.
Because I feel like the reason I want to hear from you, Jazz, is because I feel like the position that you hold within the community, you see so much. And, like, you have to be a representative of the church. And so,
Jazz, I need you to tread lightly because I have a whole rant on the failings of the modern day Black church and women and how it's an exploitative relationship. So tread lightly.
I mean, I do too, and fortunately, that's not where I stand. But so I will preface this by saying, because the question was, where did I learn masculinity first, right?
Yeah.
So to answer the original question, I think for me, I learned it first from my dad. My understanding of masculinity was that, in part, it still is that you take care, you're a provider for your family, not only financially, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so for learning from my dad, what I saw was somebody who was willing to do whatever it took to take care of the family. I also saw somebody who was willing to be honest and vulnerable. And so, I had very real conversations with my dad where he didn't feel like he had to always have all the answers. He pulled me into his process, but he also taught me how to work. He taught me how important it was to work. And I learned that from my grandfather as well. So that was my initial foray into understanding masculinity, and then just the way presenting it. I learned, I like sports, and so I easily early on equated masculinity with participation in sports, with and then over time, I'm a frat guy, so once I got to college, I think, going into the toxic masculinity component, once I got to college and I pledged and kind of became a part of the fraternity life.
What frat?
Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated.
Okay. All right. Wrong.
Ooh, you got white brothers. Go ahead.
You must be a noob.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I knew it. Light skin is fabulous. I love it.
There's other colors, brother. There's other colors. But for me, I've had to, over the years, really do a lot of work to unravel just my own perspective of masculinity, even because of the black frat life bubble. Because in that area, it was a lot of commodification of women,
right,
and creating,
what word you use? I'm sorry.
Commodification.
Commodification.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, that's on the list for me to look up later.
basically, I was in a place where women and their sexuality was exchanged as if it was playing cards.
Right.
And
that's
so
the word.
So women were a commodity and not individuals. And so, that's where I had.
They treat us like that.
Wait, Corey.
Corey, stay back over there.
So
stay back over there for a second.
So over time, it helped that this is my area of knowledge, but being able to see certain things and learn certain things, I was able to be a little more sensitive to my own personal biases and how I admit where I was wrong, and I think even, not to get Kiana started, but I even see in the traditional black church, I say the traditional black church because, I have my issues and had a fight with an old black pastor yesterday. So that's whatever. But I won't say a fight. It was more of a heated discourse.
A pastorly scuffle.
Yeah.
Pass the plate one more time.
Pass the plate.
Pass the plate.
But what I have seen and what I realize is that, what I see as toxic masculinity is the demeaning of women and not accepting their insights and abilities to converse and engage and provide. Like I've seen that happen, and so for me, it's just like constantly recognizing my own, a word that we like to say to white folks, but it exists in different ways, and as our lives intersect, and so it's like, as a man, like I have to I recognize the privileges I have as a male.
I just want to, before I give it to somebody else, because I want to remind somebody, there's someone who was gonna be here for this tonight. I'm not gonna say their name, but they didn't want to come because they felt as a woman who supported certain struggles, but to be discounted for her struggle as a woman, she didn't feel comfortable being here.
Mm.
And so, and that's a real issue, you know. And I think and it's not to discount the struggles that we're going through right now. It's to say that both are an issue, not one is bigger than the other. But anyway,
intersectionality.
Right? Who wants to go next?
I just wanted to say really. Oh, go Omar.
No,
Omar.
You sure?
No,
go ahead.
I just wanted to I was gonna lie and be like, quickly, I'd be lying. But I really like everyone's talking about what's in the personally, but I want to say a little bit of sequitur that we'll probably get back to later is that toxic masculinity works outside of a binary gender framework. So when and this is of course everyone's talking about their own experiences masculinity, and so of course those might be cis hetero experience, which is women are commodified. There is this gendered kind of intellectual, emotional, physical violence that happens with women. But I also want to be very clear that the concept of masculinity in and of itself is not something of violence, right? It is simply a gender identification. It is not inherently something of patriarchy. It is not inherently something of disdain or privilege, which I think I just want to, everybody's saying their experiences, so nothing is wrong. It's not a counterpoint, but just masculinity in and of itself, that trending toward the energies and physicality of masculine energies is in everyone and everything. And so I just want to be very cognizant as we're going through this. That's an individual experience. That's not to be your experience.
And I think worth I'm sorry.
Saying.
Clarify. Are you speaking to the new? I don't even know how to describe it, but basically we're living in a society where under society right now it's become I can't even say it. It's become more important now to really understand what people are going through in their feelings with identity as a separate thing from, I think a lot of people, and this is not the topic, but a lot of people do misinterpret identity from orientation.
And just listen to saying, I have seen toxic masculine traits
in women.
From it, not only in women, in female identified people, in transmasculine people. It is truly a set of perception and values that we espouse and correlate with being masculine.
Yes.
So I just want to say it in the sense of we're all just talking about our own experiences, and that's fine, and not to make it too academic-y, but just as your wide-spanning viewership, because we know it's going to go to the four corners of the world, and Woe Nelly is going to rock it. Even as these men are, and I feel like everyone here who I am visually seeing identifies as man, that those things are still in
women,
in us as women, people, humans, people on the spectrum. Now, it was just for me to just say I don't want Karen watching this and being oh, that ain't about me. No, it's just you. But go ahead. That's all I want to say. It's for Karen. Go ahead. I'm talking too much. I'm excited.
A new sippy cup?
Oh, no. She changed the cup.
I changed the cup. This is my water cup. This was my communion cup.
Oh.
Come on, metal straw. I see you.
It was a little flamingo because I got a pool and y'all can't have glass at the pool. So that's
not the communion. Omar, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. So for me, it's different. I can honestly say I learned masculinity from my mother, and I learned toxic masculinity from my father.
Oh.
My mother taught me the basic principles of providing for my family when I have it, to always work hard, in terms of those basic aspects of being a man. And everything I know about the toxic side of masculinity, I got from my father. The whole aggressiveness, the whole being a man at all costs, the aggressive nature and all of that. In terms of that side of it, I got that definitely from my father, always, daily. So I was just trying to, after
I got a
Jazz
question
spoke.
for you, brother. I got
No, go ahead.
and I really don't want to interrupt, but this is the best segue.
No, go ahead.
Oh, go for it, go.
And what's your name?
Omar.
Omar. Mr. Omar.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Why did she sleep with him?
Wait.
He was
Why
so
am I-
toxic.
No. When I say, well, they're not together today. So,
Well, I'm saying you were born
right.
because they were together.
He's saying that you're attracted to the toxic masculinity. That's what his segue is.
What women? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, Corey's not wrong. Thank you.
No.
Yeah.
I definitely can't disagree with you. I think throughout, even as a man in relationships, throughout my years growing up and, seeing friends and their different relationships, I think there is a certain level of natural attraction that comes with toxic masculinity. And I think...
Okay, I'm sorry. I think we need to define toxic masculinity.
First,
We did. We got the definition.
Everybody's supposed to be doing they little.
I missed it.
Right. Everybody giving a little tidbit about what their experience of masculinity is.
No. I want Mr. Omar to finish, but I just wanted to
finish, young man.
No. So yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's a certain attractiveness that comes with toxic masculinity that appeals to certain women, not all women, certain women. And I think that's a very valid point. So yeah, at that period of time of my mom's life, she probably was attracted to toxic masculinity, and there came a child, which was I. But I'm saying as an adult man, I can recognize that looking at my father, some of the traits that he has, I can look at him as a man, and I can be like, oh yeah, I see where I got all of that from. And that portion of that toxic masculinity, I know I can identify with it in my father via spending time with him, talking to him, seeing how he reacts with women. I mean, how he interacts with women, etc. So I know those specific traits. And I don't downplay them. I'm not mad about them. They made me who I am, and I respect that. But I can definitely identify with the fact that those toxic forms of masculinity did come from him versus my mother, on the other hand. If that makes sense.
I'm gonna let you.
It does.
It's your turn now, but it's your turn.
But yeah. So if that makes sense, huh?
It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
I'm telling
you. We ready for you. Now you gonna take the cigar?
We're gonna take his
for you now.
Now it's his turn.
Let me call.
Okay. So I missed what y'all define toxic masculinity.
We're not defining it yet. At this point, we're giving your perspective on where you, as an individual, came to terms with masculinity.
Okay, well, that's not where I was gonna go.
Right, we're going there later. You're getting right.
No. Let me. It's my turn. Let me go. What I see in my life and many other people's lives, that women sleep and have babies with toxic men, and then they're single parent. I'm talking about the Black community.
But you talking about everybody. Go ahead. We're talking about everybody.
Who said that?
We're asking you about your personal experience because
it is personal.
So you feel like you came to know what masculinity was because all Black women sleep with toxic masculinity men?
No, you're changing what I'm saying.
No,
now that's a different question.
I'm asking you a direct question.
Okay.
The direct question is, how did you, Corey Collier, come to terms with masculinity? Where did you learn it from? That's the question. You, not the whole community.
I learned it basically from television, the G.I. Joes, the action figures, the Tonka trucks. Like they put boys play with this and girls play with this. So I'm not saying I'm better than anyone.
Right.
I'm not saying I know, because I'm a single parent child, my mother. So what I'm saying is ultimately my masculinity comes from television and life. and living in America.
Okay, Alex, did you go already?
I did. It's Julian's turn.
Julian.
Okay.
We've been waiting on you, Julian. Come on now.
Come on, Julian.
I just have a lot of opinions on this one. Okay, so I guess where did you learn it from?
Yeah.
Obviously, our parents are probably the first teachers on what masculinity is, and then rather what our gender roles are, because I think that's like they're kind of intrinsically tied together, unfortunately, which it's always been a little hard for me, at least, because I felt like I've always existed outside of those bounds. So like my dad really wasn't around as much, so it's not like he really taught me how to be a man, kind of a thing, because he was working a lot, so it was really my mom who raised me. So it's like she kind of teaches you what the roles of a man is supposed to be, and like what masculinity is supposed to look like, but you have no actual example except for obviously like TV and things like that. So here we are, as a kid, like, they pushed a lot of like action movies and stuff like that. So there's a lot of violence, I think, that kind of comes along with it, but it's unfortunate to say, because I hate to give like ladies any blame, but it's like a two-part thing on behalf of like parents of older generations on how masculinity has kind of become this toxic thing. They perpetuated a lot of that aggression in its own way. They perpetuated that aggression, and then more importantly, the importance of the dominance of being the breadwinner versus not being the breadwinner. That was also like a huge thing about being a man. You're the one who provides for the family, but they don't, Jazz had said, oh, I want to provide spiritually and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but a lot of people really don't get that message, the spiritual part and the emotional part. Like they get the only thing that they hear as far as masculinity is you gotta be an alpha male, and you have to provide for your family, and that's it. That's like those are like the main two things, and everything else is kind of periphery. And I mean, we grew up with like all these other things that just kind of add to it, like boys will be boys, that whole thing, like that we don't really teach them how to treat women and stuff. So it's like we've kind of created this form of masculinity without that's kind of one-sided, because to be honest, like true masculinity to me is just something that's more in the middle, where you've got femininity, like really, like we should all kind of coexist with both, femininity and masculinity should kind of just flow through us. That's just how that is. Right. Personally, I think, so it's like we should just kind of be in tune with either side, but we've kind of created this culture where we can only be on one end of the spectrum, and the most extreme end, and like any steps in the other direction just kind of makes you lesser than. So like that's kind of my experience with that.
I'm like all about Julian. Like Julian just like hit the nail on the head for me. I don't know. Go ahead.
I really like what Julian said, because for me, I feel like this is a 2-part episode. Today we're doing this version of the toxic masculinity. The next episode is going to focus specifically on LGBTQ and how it affects that community. Because
invite me, because y'all are. Go ahead. No, I'm not gonna say
interesting. But to me, when I had to learn masculinity,
I can't say too much.
I actually learned. It's interesting hearing Corey say that he learned masculinity from TV, because I learned masculinity from him, and it because I've always known that I was LGBTQ, whatever it's gonna be, whatever. I always known that about myself. I've always had a lot of I've always felt like an enigma to myself. I didn't understand myself, because my dad, where Corey felt like he wasn't that present. My dad, to me, wasn't somebody I would consider feminine by far, but he's also not someone that I would consider like masculine, because my dad, the things that are important to him are essentially like wisdom. That's like his like with him, it's like God, wisdom, wife, children. That's how pecking order goes. So for me, growing up, knowing that I was different than what the masculine person in my life was, I didn't play sports. I tried to play the sports that Corey played, and every time I got my ass like, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't good at that kind of stuff. I was more geared toward these other things. So for me, coming to terms with masculinity is something I still deal with today, because even as an adult man, I still don't feel like I am accepted as a man by the people that I view as men.
That's
and
so weird.
my active brain knows that that's bull. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the feelings are there. My brain is like, well, bro, like, why do you care? That's toxic masculinity. But the feelings are still there. The thoughts are still there.
Well, let me say something, because you raised a really interesting point, as does Julian, because everyone is like the Brady Bunch. I'm like, Julian, Alex, Corey. Masculinity to me, particularly, it really does go off of a standard definition of these are gender roles, characters, attributes that we simply attribute to men, right? And I use that in the terms of like people we attribute, unfortunately, like to having a particular biological sex, right? Because society's pretty garbage. But it's really interesting when I think of like what is masculinity to you. And in listening to everyone, I lament sorely that the attribution is almost inherently filled with negativity and pain. Like that's what I'm hearing, and it hurts. It hurts. I mean, myself included. Like just for a little primer on me, like. I was raised by a single mom. I do have a man who I call my dad, but he's not my biological dad. In fact, Duryea, I don't know if you remember this, but Duryea was literally there the second and last time I ever saw my father.
What?
Do you remember that?
When was this?
It was our high school graduation. We were in the courtyard in North Atlanta, and I saw a guy walking up to me, and you literally turned to me and you said, "That's your daddy, isn't it?"
That sounds like some shit I do.
And I was like, yeah, I never seen him, but the nigga looked just like me, so I guess that's right.
But you know what's crazy? I kind of want to point at Jazz real quick, because, Jazz, what you said to me, man, I think that's so beautiful, because, not to me, but what you said to the group was so beautiful, because I feel like you've described the dad everybody wants. Like, the stuff he's teaching you, because to me, when I just, as an adult man, getting past the toxic masculinity that's held me back, I've decided that masculinity, in my opinion, means taking care of your responsibilities. You know what I'm saying? Showing up.
Yeah.
Showing up. And it sounds like you, and that's why I like to have this group of people, because I want us to talk about this. Like, so not only what it is, what do we do about it? And how do we make sure we have more, in our opinion, hopefully, more situations like that where somebody can say, my dad, by example, and he was bop, 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 bop.
But if being a man is showing up, look at the dearth of that in society. Like, I don't know if that's, again, like the thing that I find most disparaging is that masculinity is such a beautiful thing. The things that we should attribute to men in terms of just like, and again, I'm not talking about anything defined by biological sex, but just like those who feel that they are men, right? Like there is warmth there is comfort there is, when I think of not my biological father, but the man, if I ever talk about my dad, like he is such a warm person. He would do anything for me. I literally got my dad out there buying me a car right now because I don't want to. Like he's such a wonderful person. Like when Jazz talks about that spiritual side, he is literally a father to people who he meets every single Sunday. He is a shepherd. He is a father figure, right? And I hate that when somebody asks you what is masculinity, it is almost invariably something that we disdain. And I think it has caused such hurt for people in a place where it shouldn't be, right? Like, and that's the thing that I hate most. And I think toxic masculinity, and when I say toxic, I mean that which refuses to acknowledge that being masculine is beauty. Having attributes of feminine that coincide with the masculine is beauty. Being soft, being flawed, being fallible is part of being man.
I'm sorry. Can y'all talk about more what she's talking about having these emotions?
And that's probably one of my biggest ones, is that it we talk even about just like toxic masculinity, but to be honest, just, we call it toxic masculinity now just because we are changing the definition of masculinity, at least in current days. But definitely, like, our ancestors' idea of it was not really with emotion. You know what I mean? Like, men were not exactly taught to have them, or how to not to express them, certainly, and not how to express them properly with anyone else.
Specific ones were acceptable, and others were not.
Right.
Can I ask? Please.
Yeah.
What is? I must have missed it. What is toxic masculinity?
Sexism, might makes right. Illusions combined with fears of rejection that energize insatiable lust for proof of superiority and entitlements to dominate, exploit, and abuse with impunity.
Hold on, that's the definition?
That's a definition. Because toxic masculinity is
can you read it one more time, please?
I will, but let me preface with this. Masculinity, I think what we're kind of agreeing on is masculinity is a concept that's both societal and personal, right? And it's dynamic, right? So this is a definition that a psychiatrist of how she describes it, because toxic masculinity is this idea of a masculinity that forces it to only be one way, when the truth is every individual has a right to claim their own masculinity. And they define. Because masculinity is not just a male thing, and all people are touched with masculinity at different times, because we have mothers and fathers.
Okay, again, what is toxic masculinity?
Say it one more time.
Number two, now that you said what you just said, do you know we have chromosomes in us that are both masculine and feminine? Which
is what we're basically saying, is that we are both masculine and feminine. So to be told that one is wrong to show traits of is almost against our nature. So that's why it is then toxic.
Okay, I see my man, I forgot his name again, with the yellow sweatshirt. He's trying to say something.
How do you forget that name?
Is it not at the bottom of your screen? You do not have everybody's name?
I don't have his, unfortunately.
Oh, interesting.
I got Omar's, I got Durier's.
He's gonna list us now.
Don't do me like that, bro.
Oh, I'm gonna do you like. Go ahead.
It's okay.
It's okay. We know you're talking about Jazz.
Okay, Jazz. I see it now.
Yeah,
He's trying to say something. Go ahead, brother.
Well, I thought you were asking me a question.
Yeah, he was.
No, I was asking the panel, what is toxic masculinity?
Toxic masculinity. One more again, Nathan. One more again. Sexism and toxic masculinity. Might makes right thought process, okay? Illusions combined with fears of rejection that energize insatiable lust for proof of superiority and entitlements to dominate, exploit, and abuse with impunity.
Okay. Do you know females are afraid of rejection?
And we're not saying that we're not saying toxic masculinity is only something men deal with. We're really agreeing with you on that. Toxic masculinity is something that we all deal with.
So I have a question. Okay, so how much of, with all the stuff that you just said a few minutes ago, Durier, how much of I guess masculinity can we contribute to our parents' manipulation versus our society and your genetic makeup? Like,
what do you mean?
Like, in terms of, we know we have, female traits and male traits.
Right.
But if as a child I am, my mother raised me, and for example, how much of my mother's influence dictates, what I define masculinity as, and how I end up turning out as a man, whether I'm super masculine or more of a feminine man. Like,
I think I actually would love to respond to that for a few reasons. Okay, I'm gonna give you one on the DNA tip, right? Not the DNA tip. You said genealogical, right? The biological, right?
The genome. Talk about the genome.
Omar, you sing, right? You're a tenor, right?
Right.
To some people, that signifies a female trait.
I'm a tenor. That's
right. So, but Kiana's a 10er, and for a woman, that's a masculine trait.
Masculine trait.
Right.
Right.
So the point is, but that's still a concept because you just are that way. It's not necessarily. Right. It's not saying that feminine or masculine is bad, but that's on that side of the ideas of what your parents influence you and what society influences you. You also have to take this part of it. There's a choice that is there too.
Right.
In toxic masculinity, because like I told you, I had the same influence as my brother, but we then had two different aspects of masculinity. For my brother, masculinity was doing what he wanted to do. For me, my masculinity became doing what I thought I should do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and that was a choice because even if I was too young to know I was making that choice, I was, because it's like, okay, like Jazz was just talking about, like we would wear extra size clothes and stuff like that back then, just because we had to be a dude, and that's what dudes wore. A dude would never be walking around the clothes we wear today back then, ever.
Right.
Because for some reason that was a bad thing. But the truth is, in my opinion, a man or a woman, like when I talk about responsibility, I feel like a man, a masculine person, a feminine, whatever, a man or a woman does what they're supposed to do. They show up, they deal with their responsibilities. To me, that's my criteria for man.
And I think we gotta embrace the reality. All of us have social norms that we subscribe to and we don't. Like, you know, there are social norms that say, well, if even when we talk about race, like there are social norms that you're not black enough if you don't adopt certain social norms. So I think even in the conversation about masculinity and femininity, there are things like that. You know, there are things that I do that people be like, "Oh, that's feminine." I'm like, okay, you ain't
right.
What? Like, you know, and so it's we always want to categorize. We always want to put people in a specific box and say, "Hey, you're masculine if you do X, Y, and Z." Like I shared earlier before everybody got on. Do you want me to wait to share this?
No, please. Okay.
So, you know, I was telling Jordy, like, when we were talking about how I was doing, like last night, my son lives in San Diego. Well, he lives in San Diego County, not San Diego City. And so I'm trying to co-parent from the other side of the country. My son is black and Mexican. So that's a whole nother thing. Being raised by his mother full time. And so she texted me yesterday and was like, "Hey, I need your backup on something. Just give him a call tonight." We co-parent, you know, our relationship is cool. But I called him, and by the end of the conversation, it hit me that I cannot physically protect him from the other side of the country. And I broke. Like I cried, boo-hoo cried. Now, my son has seen me cry before because he was with me a few years ago when one of my best friends got killed, and I cried. And so he's seen me cry a couple of times, and even in January when I went to visit him, I was planning on being there next weekend for his promotion. Not gonna happen. But in January, we had a very honest conversation where I said, "Hey, this is what I feel when you don't pick up or respond. This is what it means to me when I spend the type of energy and money I spend to make sure that I come see you. Like, seeing him ain't cheap. And spending time with him and doing what he wants to do when I'm in his space ain't cheap." And so I don't give him numbers, but I do help him understand, like, hey, I'm really trying to be present for you, even though we're on opposite sides of the country. He subscribes more to his Mexican side, his Mexican identity and heritage, because that's where he is. He's in Southern California. Yeah. So with his mama, right? So why I'm sharing this is because for many people, they would say, it's not, you need to man up. You don't need to cry in front of your son. You need to man up. You don't need to talk about your emotions with your son. You need to man up and not express any of these hurts or challenges that you feel. But I don't believe that that's a way of articulating masculinity to my son, because
I can agree with that.
I don't want him to
That
think
is kind of toxic. Go ahead, brother.
I don't want him to think, man, my dad is impervious to anything that happens. Because we're talking about the reality that black and brown bodies are hated in this country. Right. And so when I'm talking to him, he understands, man, my dad cares a lot about me. Mm-hmm. And he knows I'm busy. Like, he knows. And yet he's like, man, my dad got PlayStation Network just to play 2K with me so we can FaceTime and play 2K, or we can talk about X, Y, and Z. That's most toxic masculinity would say, like, nah, you don't show anything like that. And that's just not, my take on masculinity.
Right. I think there's something really beautiful about the fact that your son has seen you cry. I've never seen my father cry.
I was just about to say that. I've never seen my dad cry. Now, me on the other hand, I cry.
Omar cry.
You don't know Omar. We don't see you cry. We love it.
We were all actors together, but we don't.
I know we don't see him. We love it.
But no, Jazz, it's crazy because the first time I ever witnessed my father crying, because I didn't see it, and I don't really consider that he's a toxic, a practitioner of toxic masculinity, but he lost his mother recently, and and then he lost his brother, who was basically like 20 years older than him, so that was his father, and he called me after it happened, and he just like broke down. I just sat with him. At this point, I'm older now. Me and my dad have had our come together, so it's different. But just the idea that man, I wish I had that younger. You know what I'm saying? Because my dad is somebody I still look up to. He's not perfect, and I've accepted that. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole nother conversation when we realize our parents aren't perfect. But knowing that he is capable of that hurt didn't make me look at him as less than masculine. It actually made me feel honored. I felt like he loves me. He knows that I want the best for him because he would share that with me. And he felt strong enough to do that. And we need, my opinion is, we especially as black men, because there's so much black male hate that exists, that we need to start teaching each other that it's okay to love each other and to express that love. Like, it's crazy. Being locked up is interesting because I didn't think this is where I would have experienced it. Real grown-ass men, it might be his time to go home. Hey, I love you, bro. Mm-hmm. Because, I guess, you going home, I may see, I don't know what, the situation is for each individual, but that's the first time I saw black men literally just say without any sort of qualms, I love you, to another black man.
Can I say something that I think is, and I want to say, Jazz, thank you so much for sharing that, and your willingness to share that. Duri, thank you so much for sharing that, and particularly your experience being incarcerated, being in that environment. And I was just I want to say one thing, if there's the one thing I can say about toxic masculinity, because we've all heard be better to women, don't treat them as sex objects, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that's important here. I think the thing that's important is really an imaginative justice that we have to around what it means to love each other as people who are masculine. And just like you said, in these places where imagination, life, living in a prison, that is stifled, when we live in these communities where we have, just like we talked about earlier, a dearth of care because our society doesn't care about us. We don't have what we need for growth. We are in such a subsistence survival mode that I think that when you have these black men who have the ability to imagine a different form of masculinity, that's when transformation comes. Because for me, my brushes with toxic masculinity are exactly what you think they would be, right? Men who discount my opinion, men who don't share with me the things that I need, men who puff up and posture instead of being soft and yielding when I need them to be, right? We know the story. But I think the thing that I would like everyone to take away from this is that you get to define what that masculinity is and how it impacts people. And the most important thing from that definition you read earlier that makes this process of unlearning and reimagining really difficult is with impunity. No one is telling us, no one is telling Black men, brown men, all men, men identified people that like you get to make and reimagine that, right? Your actions are never met with consequence or critique that involves real censure for change. And so, like, I think the biggest thing is like, if you know you're working in a place where you can act with impunity, it becomes even more important for you to have that community and build a level of self-awareness that allows you to check and recheck and self-check and hold each other accountable. Because I, as a woman, will ultimately fail in doing that for you. It is only like with this space, in these reimaginings, where men make their definitions of love and kinship and binding, that toxic masculinity is going to change. Because women, and you know, with a Y in it, have already told you the hurts. But I think this imagination that you all have, that's what's going to create a catalyst. I think that's it, you know.
So is it the responsibility of other men to help men themselves define true masculinity, or can females contribute to that? It's just a generic question I'm throwing out.
I like that question because I think that I think females also contribute to the concept of toxic masculinity.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And this is why I'm an old ass Southern Black woman cliche. I'd be like, a woman can't raise a man, and I feel like, you know, I want to be more like, I have degrees in intellectualism, but honestly, that's where I am. Like, and like men have to do that. That's an in-group work, right? Like I can't do that for you. I can't show you what it means to form your own sense of self and community and what masculinity looks like. And I feel like a lot of women get upset about this because they're like, I raised my kids. I did this. That's not what I'm saying. In the same way that like women need models of masculine care, which I am just now starting to feel and understand profoundly at the age of 32, right? Like, I don't think I, as a woman, can fully prepare you for the experience of bonding and kinship as it relates to other men largely defined. I just personally don't believe I can do that. And yes, are women complicit in their own oppression? Absolutely. Because we've also been told this is the model of the man you want, which is incorrect.
Yeah, there's a thing called toxic femininity. So,
for sure.
And I want to speak on that a little bit. Tell me,
yeah,
I'm just curious about how you feel about that too, about the toxic femininity. Yes,
you spread it up.
I mean, yes, there's definitely toxic femininity. It is, or there are women out there who co-sign into negative situations for themselves, whether it be, unfortunately, domestic violence or abuse of any kind, physical or mental, and they become the doormat and they breathe that negativity by having their kids around it, talking to other women about it. You know, I deserve what happened to me. Had I been more like this, had I been more like that, this wouldn't be happening to me. You should, or, you know, oh, if you're having a problem with your man, oh, girl, you know, you just need to just bow down to what he's saying because at least you got a man and you can be happy and take it. I guess, like, in the reverse of that, I don't think it's a man's responsibility to come along and lift a woman out of that, but it is his responsibility to support, just like it's a woman's responsibility to support a man. You know, if you have a man that comes to you genuinely and openly and is trying to change for whatever reason, we can offer support. We can always be there to listen when they don't feel that they have that ear, maybe in their male compatriots. You know, we can always be there to give suggestions. We can be there to just simply say, you know, fuck the police, and damn your boss was tripping today, and your homeboy was wrong. But I, like Kiana was saying, I don't think that I can teach you how to be a man. I can't give you the tools, but I can support you finding the tools for yourself. I can support you helping yourself, because I know that it's not easy to ask for help. And I know that it is unfortunate that a lot of people feel like they can't. And I know, especially for men, it's hard to ask for help. And, y'all have been raised to kind of just, if y'all don't know what y'all doing, you'll figure it out. And, if you're going to cry and get emotional about it, shut it down, And that's sad. And I feel like, and I've always felt that way, even with just like my dad was in the Navy for a very, very, very long time. And growing up, I didn't feel the strongest connection. Like, I kind of felt like he was always away, and I was like, okay, I'm here, and he's not really interested in me because I'm a girl and I was the firstborn. But now, having spent more time with him, having seen my dad cry on numerous occasions, my dad is the exact opposite. He would cry over anything. He would cry over like PETA commercials, hamburger helper commercials be too heartwarming. He's tearing up. For me, I learned I had to approach masculinity differently, because I think I kind of approached it negatively. I felt like guys are only assholes, and I have to be an asshole in return. And the guy is on 15, I have to be on 72. And it is not my fault, and it's not their fault, but I have to do the work on myself first to understand what I'm looking for in masculinity. And I had to understand that I'm looking for someone to lead, and in order for me to look for someone to lead, I need to figure out what my femininity is giving off, like, what am I allowing into my space? What are people perceiving about me, especially guys that maybe I'm not looking as like, I don't know, it's hard to explain.
Well, I hate to do it, Alex, because this is an excellent topic, guys, and we really could go on for hours, but we are out of time. So what we do, we generally let everyone have a final thought. We kind of do it, whoever wants to go in order. You just kind of say what you took away from the whole conversation, whether it's that storms. Oh, hold on 1 second.
Don't talk.
At the end. Usually at the end we do a final thought. So just your takeaways from tonight's discussions, anything you want to say or anything that you want the viewers to leave with, let us know. Anyone who wants to go first.
All right.
Don't make me pick now.
I think one of the biggest things I took away was that it's okay to have conversations with people and to not always land at the same place. I think that that's something that is lost in society today, and cancel culture is too real for some of the wrong reasons. Sometimes it's okay to cancel somebody, but there are other times where we cancel people simply because we're not able to come together and have a meaningful discourse, even when we don't necessarily agree. So if you sit long enough with anybody that you think you agree with wholeheartedly, you'll find something you don't agree about. So I just appreciate us being able to have this dialogue.
We appreciate you being here. Am I gonna pick? Because I'll pick. Go ahead.
What I take away from this is that just check in with yourself. Be on top of your mental health, especially with everything that's going on. I mean, if you need somebody to talk to, this has been a great panel. So I know I just met some of you. However, through this dialogue, I feel like, I like where a lot of your mindsets are. And even if I don't agree with some of the things that you did say, I feel like I have somebody I can possibly reach out to after this and just have conversation about what's going on in the world. Because at the end of the day, sometimes people just need someone to talk to vent, to get the weight off. So yeah, that's what I take away from this, and to make sure I'm good mentally, and to check on others.
Excellent. Do. Let's hear from Kiana.
I think the thing that I took away from this conversation is that I do have a responsibility in terms of what am I affirming in people in terms of their masculinity or femininity. And just like Jazz said, therapy helps. I'm going to see Elaine on Thursday, so we're going to talk about this. But just like in the sense of when I'm around men who exhibit those traits that I want to see in masculinity, do I affirm them, right? Or do I or do I in my mind subconsciously say like, you know, oh, you don't have this leg, or you don't have this, or blah blah blah. When I meet women who have like, am I affirming the things that I want to see in others when it comes to imaginative justice, when it comes to imagining a new level of love and how we see ourselves? And I think that's just my challenge. And I already know a few people that in our next interactions, I really just want to affirm them as people who have ownership of those associated traits that I think are going to be so special for just making a new crop of people. So I think that's really
excellent. Corey?
I was on mute. Basically, what I want to say is I personally don't believe in toxic masculinity or toxic femininity. I believe there's just toxic people. And let me give you guys an example. If you have a rabid dog, you don't really care whether it's feminine, a male dog, or a feminine or a female dog. It's rabid, you know, when it comes to toxicity. So I just think we need to have established personal boundaries, and whoever's toxic in your life, get rid of them. Just like you would get rid of a rabid dog, whether they're male or female. That's where I'm coming from.
All right. Alex?
Shoot them in the backyard, apparently.
Apparently so.
I mean, it'll fix a few things.
I feel like there's always work to be done. There's always more work to be done. You can always learn something new, and you can always be open to different people's perspectives, like you said, even if you don't necessarily agree with them. And I will continue to try to be less defensive, which is always my major goal with everyone, guys and girls, and be more empathetic, because I'm hard. So that's what I've taken away. I just need to be a little bit more loving to my people.
Oh, okay. Julie.
Takeaway. I would probably have to go with a lot of what like Kiana said, where it's like, you know, are you affirming the things in people that you want, the good traits that you want them to exude more? I mean, I don't affirm as much. I'm more on the other end where I check you a lot. So like a lot of people around me, like I'll check them on their toxic masculinity and things like that. You know, and it's like maybe I should kind of more on the other end at least be a little more positive sometimes and try to affirm the traits that they're exuding that are worthy, you know, and then be like, those are the things you need to run with. But, you know, we're kind of redefining masculinity as a whole in our current generation. So I think like we're really moving positively in that direction at least. But we really have to, like, as with anything, you have to really just have like introspection. You have to like really just say, okay, well, these are the things that I've been taught, but everything you've been taught isn't always right. And that comes from every source. Like every source you should really be thinking critically about, like, what is it that it's teaching me? And then, you know, what are the good things, the positive things I can take from this? What are the negative things that I can leave or change? You know, and I think that's just really one of the biggest things that men need to go through. But, you know, it's something that we have to teach ourselves. And that's something that male or female you can teach. It's just, it really depends on the recipient, whether they're being they're open to changing or, things like that. But I don't know, toxic masculinity is a hard one because it's like it's its own system in its own right that kind of needs its own dismantling. And it's unfortunately really deeply tied with gender, and then also tied with like social norms, and then it's really deep, and it's like something that's really hard to route, but you can't do that unless you really like actually think about it within yourself. Like what are these traits that I could do without that are derivatives of a culture of masculinity that is a construct in the end. You know what I mean? It's something that we made up. It's not, you know what I mean? We want to talk about, if we want to talk about biology, we have also, men have estrogen and testosterone. Women have the same thing. Our ability to be more feminine or be more masculine is always within us. So it's just really where you consciously put yourself. Are you going to keep yourself in a box that the social norms have kind of created for us? And then more importantly, remember that the key thing about toxic masculinity is that alpha male mentality, where it's like it's to establish dominance, it's to establish yourself as higher and better than others around you. And it's like, and that's not really a sentiment that we should be bringing into 2020, considering everything that we're dealing with as it is.
So in closing, my final thoughts were basically self-awareness is, I think, what we're really into as a world right now. It's people need to realize that at some point we probably all stood in the way of someone's happiness, whether intentional or not. And that's where it comes in self-awareness. I think actively looking for those moments where you are standing in front of someone else's happiness is your responsibility. That's your responsibility to do that. And you can't excuse not doing that because of this reason or that. At the end of the day, it is our responsibility to take care of each other. But that starts with not only taking care of yourself, but being aware of how you affect the world around you. And also, I challenge everybody who sees this and everybody who is affected by this to start congratulating each other. When you see somebody doing well in the world, don't hate them. Don't hate on them. Don't be jealous. Don't be envious. Tell them that what they're doing is awesome because they probably took a lot of work for them to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Even if they had to dance on a pole to get there, look at them in their face because they're a human being going through similar struggles and tell them that they're doing good. You know what I'm saying?
I wish I could have danced on the pole. I never had.
You know what I'm saying? They had me some singles and shit, but
I never had the look for the pole.
You know what I'm saying? But
they might have me at Claremont. That's the only pole I can be on is over at the Claremont. I think that's
not at the
Don't
Claremont.
sell yourself short.
Red Roof Inn. Hey, no, listen. I love you all. I love you all. I know I had to slip that one in there. I love you all so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for my panelists, each and every one of you. Your opinions are so great. And this is the end of Talk It Out, where we talk it out. Remember, it's look, don't laugh at my tagline. I told y'all not to.
It's delightful. I want to be invited back.
That it's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about listening and being heard.